I did want to move on to one of our first genre news stories, and that first genre news story is a very big one. Everyone's talking about it, and for good reason. This is from the Hollywood Reporter, Chad. This is a DC shocker. James Gunn and Peter Safran are set to lead the film, TV, and animation division, chat, at DC, which is now its separate division at Warner Brothers. I read a little bit of this article. The hierarchy of power in the DC universe really is changing. In a stunning turn of events, filmmakers James Gunn and producer Peter Safran, have been tapped to lead DC's film, TV, and animation efforts as co-chairs and co-CEOs of DC Studios, a newly formed division at Warner Brothers that will replace DC Films. The unprecedented move in which a top director will assume a top executive post marks the end of a months-long search by Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav, or Zumbafu as I call him, to replace DC Films boss Walter Hamada, who departed the studio last week under pretty bad circumstances from what I've heard. That search had all of Hollywood guessing and playing executive bingo for who would land one of the most coveted and challenging jobs in town. And the article goes on to explain that Gunn and Safran responded on the Warner Bros. Lot multiple times in recent weeks, although they thought this was in regards to their various projects they were doing, but it's probably for this, being co-CEOs. There's some additional information here. It's a very long article, chat. I highly recommend checking it out. As for Gunn's future at Marvel, there has been talk that he could continue on in some form after the conclusion of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. However, today's news, which comes hours after Marvel touted its upcoming Gunn-directed Guardians holiday special, seems to have closed the door on his chapter in the MCU for now, because he has a 4-year contract where he's specifically just going to be working with Warner Brothers, Chad, as a co-CEO and possibly as a filmmaker, which would be very interesting to see that. Like, I'm trying to think of any other CEO that also served as a filmmaker within the company. The only person I can think of is John Lasseter, who was at Pixar, who made a number of films while also being CEO of that company. You know, so it's kind of stands out among a lot of CEOs, also being filmmakers. You know, he's in a small company, I would say, with James Gunn. But what's so interesting about this news, and you know, I think this is good news. I mean, we'll see inevitably what happens. You know, I mean, the DC film universe, DC extended universe, whatever you want to call it, it's been tumultuous to say the least. The quality levels, I mean, you get fucking whiplash in between movies, chat. For the Suicide Squad and the Batman, you get a Black Adam or a Wonder Woman 1984. You know, it's been weird. But what pleases me about this is that they seem to have split duties. I get the sense that they're going to be splitting duties. Like James Gunn, he's going to be more the creative mind of the DC cinematic universe going forward. While Peter Safran, he's going to have more of the business side of things. Now, for those who don't know who Peter Safran is, he's been a longtime producer. He's probably best known recently for producing a lot of the Conjuring-verse movies. Everything from the Conjuring film trilogy to, like, you know, Annabelle's and, you know, the Nun and all that. Again, those movies are of varying qualities, I would say. But listen, I mean, the guy, he's been able to make money. He's been able to shepherd a film franchise. Like, I'll give him that. And if he's going to be just taking care of the business stuff while James Gunn does the more creative things, then I think that's good. I think that's a good separation to have. You know, I've liked a lot of James Gunn's films. You know, his more recent films in the last decade, I'd say. I love the original Guardians of the Galaxy, of course. I was not the biggest fan of Guardians 2. I like elements of it. Love Kurt Russell's ego. Thought that was great. I had some issues with it. But yeah, now obviously, you know, James Gunn, he had a falling out with, you know, Disney, and they fired him because of, you know, past things. And then he did, you know, the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and he was brought back in Disney fold to finish his, you know, his Guardians arc. Did the holiday special. We just saw a trailer for it most recently. And then he finished Guardians 3, and it's kind of like, all right, that's my time with Marvel. I'm going to concentrate on this. And even James Gunn's other stuff. Love Slither, really underappreciated body horror film. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, super bold movie, very different in terms of the superhero genre. But the thing is, talking specifically about James Gunn and, you know, his DC projects, I think they've been fantastic. You know, if I were to pick like my top 10 favorite DC movies of all time, I think The Suicide Squad's probably in there. He did a really good job. Peacemaker is one of the best DC shows ever. You know, it's up there with things like live action TV show, certainly with Doom Patrol, which I absolutely love. So those kind of neck and neck with me. Yeah, I'd be very curious to see what he would do with other characters. What is he going to do with Superman? What is he going to do with Batman? Like, you know, Wonder Woman. Like, there's so many things. The thing that confuses me is The Rock. Is Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Because Dwayne The Rock Johnson, he blows a lot of smoke. He blows a lot of hot air, I think. And because, for the last several weeks, several months, he's been saying that Black Adam is going to be used as the template for the DC universe going forward. It's the one that's going to be the foundational movie. I guess a new foundation, because I guess we're getting rid of Man of Steel. Who even knows? But listen, I saw Black Adam. Black Adam fucking sucks. I think that movie is. There's things I like. I love I thought Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate was great. It has color. Someone remind me. It does have color. It's like, that's true. It does have a lot of color, which I appreciated. But there's just so much about that movie that I really disliked. So much of the one-dimensional characters, the slow motion. Just the piss-poor writing, and just the really just bad relationships between all the people. I never felt like anyone had that much chemistry. I think it's a huge swing and a huge miss for DC. Although there's a lot of people that love that movie. I don't personally get it, but hey, to each their own. So I just it's weird. So was The Rock just lying? Was The Rock just lying about this? I think that's I hope so. It's weird because if he's saying that he has all this influence at DC, and then suddenly this week they announced, well, James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to be the creative heads of the company now. Where Peter Safran will do the business angle, where James Gunn will be the creative. I'm like, it's weird. So that's the one thing I'm like, okay, what's going on there? Outside of that, I'm excited for this. I think this is really good news. DC needs fucking structure. They've needed it for many, many years, Chad. They've been spinning their wheels. Not to say that they haven't done good movies. They have done good movies, but they've done a lot of shitty films. For the Suicide Squad and the Batman, there's been a Suicide Squad 2016. There's been a Batman versus Superman. There's been a Man of Steel, which I'm just like, I think these movies are terrible. So I'm hoping that they can course correct. And going forward, they still got a few big controversies they have to figure out. Everything with the Ezra Miller and the Flash, that's going to be a whole thing, chap. I hope, going forward, like if I had any creative control of DC, I think it would be really good if they used Flashpoint like, Fox. Even though it didn't work out in the end. They should use Flashpoint like Days of Future Past. They should treat it like that, where let's kind of have a clean slate. Let's get rid of what we don't want and keep what we want, and start with a new foundation. So, but again, I just don't know going forward. I don't know going forward what's going to be happening. So, but still, I think this is, and on a high note, and on a good note, I think this is good news. I think this is really, really good news, chat. So, what about you guys? How do you feel about James Gunn, Peter Safran being the new heads? The surprise. This is. I don't think anyone expected James Gunn, to be named head of a entire film division. I think that's pretty cool. But I think this is good news. Curious to see where we're going to be in the next 5 years. But hey, today was a good day, I think, for DC film fans. Let's see here. What do you guys have to say? It's a fucking lie. Just a divisive film between critics and audiences. I guess so. Yeah. Oh, with Rotten Tomatoes. Listen, the user score on Rotten Tomatoes, I do not trust that. I do not trust the user score. Rotten Tomatoes in general, it's just, it's taking like all these reviews and coming up with these percentages and things. Like, read the individuals. I don't know. I think people rely too much on Rotten Tomatoes, but Rock's smelling his own farts right now, and woo, he let out a stinker with Black Adam, no doubt about it. Hamilton Black Adam was mediocre to me. Just how scores are fickle. They need to go. They need good writing to last. It's true. Fickle people like what the fuck they like. Yeah, it's true. People spend on what the fuck they like. That's true. Yeah, ultimately need good writing for longevity. 100%. I picked Days of Future Past apart, but it serves purpose clearly. I like Days of Future Past. That's my favorite of the Team X-Men movies, but it did clean the slate, but then they immediately mess it up, it feels like. James Gunn was out. I'm excited. I think we got to see how it turns out. True, it's exciting, but let's see where we are in 5 years or 4 years, how many years, we're in. Amazing news is basically a long story short. I'm super excited too, says BSG. I treat it as good news, but Zaslav's tempering that news. He has the final say. True, he does have the final say. Edgy Berserker, hard hands. How do you, Edgy? Hope you're doing well. Check out Edgy Stream Chat. Give her some support. Hamilton, I'm not trusting anyone until Zaslav is gone. Can't wait for Black Adam 2 enter Superman. I'm not looking forward to that. Oh, when the Lark said that, I think I took it that he was talking about what he has planned with him and Superman, not everything else. Okay. Which is still so weird to me. Well, I'm not just going by her IMDb as such. Gotcha. Blackstone, green salutation. Hope all is well, Mr. I'm doing well. Just talking about these stories. Film ratings are not accurate. True, Edgy. I agree. Apparently, they asked Safran if he wanted to do it solo, but he wanted Gunn to do it with him because they'd already worked together in Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. I think Safran was even Gunn's manager at one point. Ooh, there we go. I'm indifferent. Cedar Spock says I'm indifferent. They could all go kinds of ways. I'm not a huge Gunn fan. Don't know how he do as a producer. Yeah. This level, he's produced things, but nothing on this scale. I mean, he's CEO of a film division. He's never done that. Can you smell what the rocket's cooking? It's stinky. I don't like it. I'm in as long as Chandelier is the new Superman thing. 100%. They should definitely do that. Edgy, with Zaslav still there, I have my worries. No, I have my worries too. I'm not sure about that guy. There's all that, those rumors and allegations that he's just gutting gutting Warner Brothers just to sell it to Universal. We'll find out in time, in a few years, But for this specific news right now, just James Gunn and Peter Safran themselves. Okay, I think going forward, this is good. This was a nice choice. I haven't loved everything James Gunn has done, to be fair. Like I said, Guardians, I'm not the biggest Guardians 2 fan. I like elements of it, but overall, as a complete movie, I thought it had a lot of issues, a lot of flaws. But I liked his DC stuff, and he has a passion for these characters. The thing is, for people I'm glad they did this, because when you look at, let's compare it to Lucasfilm situation, Like Kathleen Kennedy, she's had this multiple decades spanning career producing movies. Some of the greatest films of all time, no doubt about it. Jurassic Park and Poltergeist. I mean, you pick one, Chad. You pick one. She's done some great stuff. But I feel like when she was put in charge of an entire film division under Disney, which is Lucasfilm, I get the sense that I don't think she really understands Star Wars, and she's made a lot of bad choices and a lot of bad decisions over the long term. And she seems to just have a lack of knowledge of the material. I'm not saying that she has to be a super fan of Star Wars, but I feel like you have to have respect for the material. And you have to know what works and what doesn't. For example, it's like when she was being interviewed and saying that, when we inherited Star Wars, it's not because people were comparing it to Marvel. And she said, well, that's not a fair comparison because we started with no material to base any of our content off of. I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of what the gist of what she was saying. And so I guess everything from the expanded universe is just null and void then at this point. You had nothing to, even though it's just weird. And it just seemed like it came from a lack of knowledge. She doesn't have to be a super fan. I'm not saying that. Or even James Gunn has to be a super fan of DC. But he seems to compare them, Gunn seems to have an understanding of these characters, a respect for these characters. And I like that, and I appreciate that. He doesn't have to be a fan of every single thing. And I also point to what he has said about other characters in films from Marvel. People who may have a concern of James Gunn's sensibilities and how he leans into a lot of comedy and he has very rated R type of content or what have you. But I always point to this one interview he did talking about, because they asked him what was his favorite Marvel movie, and he said Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which is kind of the antithesis of his style and his directing and his writing. But he understood that works for Captain America. I'm like, I like that. I respect that. And so I feel like even though he may not be the best for a Superman movie, but he would probably understand and respects what makes Superman work in the context of the DC universe, And so that I'm looking forward to. That's why I wish at Lucasfilm, we had Kathleen Kennedy was on the, she should have the Peter Safran role right now. And then you should have a creative person, like a Dave Filoni, whoever you want to put in there. And they do all the creative sides of Star Wars. I wish that was kind of the thing. Because I want to see how this works. Well, maybe it might not work. It might blow up on all of our faces, chat. It might be terrible, But I wish going forward, I like how they're doing this. And I wish, no one's, Kevin Feige is an enigma. He is alone. He's one of the greatest producers of all time. He's in a very unique position. I don't know if anyone could be that, who can do both the creative and business side of things and go back and forth just so easy. I don't think there's anyone else out there like that. But going forward, if this would be a new template to follow, hey, you do these film divisions, these major franchises, you have one person who handles the business stuff, you have one person the creative side. I think that's fucking brilliant. And so you don't feel this weight of everything, and you don't need to be like a super fan, or you don't need to have like a full knowledge of the characters going forward, because you handle this thing while the other person does that. But we'll see. We'll eventually see.